Hello guys, welcome to my channel. So in this video I am going to explain about the concept of synchronization. So first we need to understand why do we need synchronization. So imagine there are two threads and if they share the same memory. So in the chapter 1 I have explained you while explaining the difference between process and a thread. I told you that all the threads will share the same process memory. You remember that, right? So imagine there is one example like class bank account and there is one instance variable into balance is equal to 1000 rupees. Suppose imagine there are two threads who are trying to access this amount and they are modifying it and they are modifying it simultaneously. So this is where the problems comes. So I will explain what is the problem and how do we solve it. So in order to solve that problem we will use the synchronization concept. So now we will try to understand what is race condition. So what is the race condition is, it is a condition which occurs when multiple threads access and modify the shared data simultaneously, causing unpredictable or incorrect results. So this is the definition, okay. So I will make sure you understand the definition clearly. So imagine there is one bank account and the balance is 1000 rupees and two people they will withdraw 500 rupees at the same time. So what should be the final output? So 1000 rupees balance is there, two people withdrawing 500 rupees, the output should be 0, okay. So now consider like there is a thread A. So thread A will try to execute this transaction. So balance is equal to 500 and thread B also try to execute this transaction. And these transactions will execute simultaneously. So remember this thing, okay. So what happens is when a thread A reads, so the balance is 1000 rupees, okay. So 1000 rupees, the balance is 1000 rupees and it withdraw 500 rupees, okay. And before updating the balance the CPU switches to thread B. So since the balance is not updated by thread A, thread B also reads 1000 rupees. So after reading, so they both calculate what they will calculate. 1000 rupees is there. If I deduct 500 rupees, the remaining balance is 500 rupees. Thread A calculate the balance is 500 rupees and thread B also calculates the balance is 500 rupees. Okay. And thread A will write 500 rupees and thread B also writes 500 rupees. And final balance is 500 rupees. But what should be the final balance? The final balance should be 0, but it is showing 500 rupees. So this is the race condition, okay. This is what we call it as race condition. Because of multiple threads trying to modify the shared access or the shared resource, so there is a inconsistency problem. Now we will see why did it happen, okay. So why did this happen? Because both the threads they access the same memory at the same time, and thread A does not know that thread B is writing and thread B does not know other thread is updating. So because of which this discrepancy happens. And there is something known as critical section. So you need to understand what is critical section. Critical section is nothing but it's a part of the code where the shared resource is being accessed and modified. So if we are taking the previous example, so where we are modifying this balance is equal to balance minus 500. So this is the critical section, okay. So I am writing the same way, balance is equal to balance minus amount. So this is the area where the shared resources are being accessed or modified. That is what we call it as critical section. So now we will come for the concept. So this is the reason why we need synchronization. So this is the backend part. Now we will come to the actual topic, that is synchronization. What is synchronization? So this is the definition you should answer in the interview, like kind of the same definition. So synchronization is it's a mechanism that allows only one thread to at a time to access the critical resource or the shared resource, or to execute the critical section, okay, and preventing race conditions and ensuring data consistency. So I think by reading the definition you will get to only the partial picture of it. So we will try to explore and understand what is synchronization. So So without synchronization, what happens is if there are multiple threads, all these multiple threads will try to access this balance and they will try to update the balance at the same time, because of which we will face race condition and data inconsistency, which is danger. So with the synchronization, what happens is, yeah, so Java provides a keyword known as synchronized keyword. Okay, so this is the keyword which protects the critical section from race conditions and data inconsistency. So we will see, this is the code snippet that you have, and I'll explain this code snippet. So yeah, imagine there is a class called as bank account, and I have a private instance variable that is balance 1000 rupees. That is what I explained, right? So I have one method like public synchronized void withdraw method. So and int amount, I am passing the amount as 500 rupees. So balance is equal to balance minus 5000, balance minus 500 rupees. Okay. So what happens is whenever I am using synchronized keyword, so multiple threads cannot access this method simultaneously. For example, if thread A is executing this method, the synchronized instance method, it will have the lock of the object. Okay, it will have the lock of the object. Then thread B cannot execute this method because it does not have the lock of this object in order to execute this method. So thread A will get the lock and it will execute the method. Since the lock is with the thread A, at a time only one thread can execute this method, preventing the race conditions and the data inconsistency. Yeah, when a thread enters this synchronized method, what happens is it will acquire the lock of that object and it will start executing this synchronized method. That's so that other threads can wait before executing the synchronized method. Okay, that is one of the thing. And another thing is a synchronized block. So you understood what is synchronized method. So I'll explain what is synchronized block. Sometimes you don't want to synchronize the entire method. That means if there are 100 lines, okay, 100 lines does not need synchronization. That means in that 100 lines only one or two lines are modifying the shared resource. In that case you cannot put a synchronized method for all the 100 lines. Okay, it will make the other threads waiting time increases and also the performance reduces. So this is a simple example. So there is one withdraw method, uh, and I am using synchronized of this. This is synchronized block because as you can see, balance is equal to balance minus amount. This is the critical section. Okay, only this section is the one which needs synchronization. So in order to execute this section, we don't want other lines of the code to be part of the synchronized block. That's why we will be using synchronized block. Okay, so you understood, right? If only few lines of the code require synchronization, you go for synchronized block, not the synchronized method. So I'll this is what I'm explaining why this is better. So imagine a method takes 10 seconds to execute. Okay, in that 10 seconds only one line modifies the shared data. In our case, what is that line? Balance is equal to balance minus amount. So if only one line modifies the shared data, then why you are blocking the other threads for the full 10 seconds? Okay, why you are blocking the other 10 seconds? So you just add this critical section or only the one line in the synchronized block so that it will improve the performance. Okay, so that is the reason we will be using synchronized block. So I will be explaining the difference between synchronized method and synchronized block. And the synchronized method, if you want to, yeah, a synchronized method and synchronized block. Here in the synchronized method the entire method is locked, whereas in the synchronized block only the selected code, only the critical section is selected. And in synchronized method it's easy to write, and synchronized block is for better performance because we are including only the critical section. And the synchronized method, so if there is a larger critical section, then we will go for synchronized method. If there is a smaller critical section, we will go for synchronized block. Excuse me. Now we will come to the concept of object lock. So this concept is very important. Please listen to me very carefully. Okay. So for example, what I am doing is I am creating two objects. One is account number one, the reference I am telling, bank account object. Account number two. There are two objects. Okay, and every object has its own lock. Okay. Because of this, what happens if two threads are there? Then thread 1 can acquire the lock of this account 1 object, and thread 2 can acquire the lock of account 2 object. And if there is any instance synchronized method, these threads can execute that method simultaneously. Why? Because the objects are different. Account 1 has its own lock and account 2 has its own lock. So every thread like thread 1 and thread A and thread B both threads have the lock of that object, and because of this there is no conflict, and this case is acceptable. Then we have something called as class level lock, that is a static synchronized method. So I'll say you, yeah, this is the static synchronized method. So what is this is class level. If there is you remember this, I have the code snippet, public static synchronized void transfer. So static synchronized, if there is a static synchronized method and if you want to execute that method, then you require a class level lock. And this class level lock, it belongs to the class, not to any individual object. Even if you create 100 objects like account 1, account 2, account 3, like that, all of these objects will share the same class lock. Okay, since all of these share the same class lock, so at a time only one thread can execute the static synchronized block, static synchronized method. Why? Because every class has only one lock, that is class level lock, and in order to execute this, every thread has to acquire this class level lock. And yeah, that is what the class level lock. So in order to execute the static synchronized method, we will be using class level lock. So now I will explain you the difference between object to lock and class lock. Okay, object to lock, every object has the object to lock, and like it's one per object, so one lock per object we have the object lock. But this class level lock, we have for all the shared resource, for the entire class we have only one lock. And in order to execute the synchronized instance method, you need the object to lock, and in order to execute the static synchronized method, you need the class level lock. And object lock, if there are different objects, then there is no issue. You can like you can execute the you can execute the instance synchronized methods if there are multiple or different objects, because every thread will acquire the lock of that object. But here if here in the class level lock, all the objects share the same class lock, so they need to wait until acquiring the class level lock. Okay, now there is a question: can two threads execute different synchronized methods? Okay, you remember the question, and also you remember there is something called a same object. They have written something known as same object. So what is the question is, there are two synchronized methods. One is deposit method and another is withdraw method, and there are two threads. Okay, thread A wants to execute deposit method and thread B wants to execute withdraw method. They are asking whether this is possible or not. Since because they have given the same object, this is not possible. Okay, when thread A is executing the deposit method, it has the lock of that object. Okay, but thread B will not have the lock of any object, because there is only one object, that is the same object. So because of which this this simultaneous execution, they cannot execute different synchronized methods simultaneously. But if instead of same object, if the object is different, if there are two objects, then these threads can execute the methods, different synchronized methods simultaneously. Since it is the same object, then that is not possible. Okay, then I'll explain you what is the advantages and disadvantages of synchronization. With the synchronization, we can prevent race conditions, we can improve the data we can ensure data consistency. Okay, we can reduce the data inconsistency, and also thread safety, because at a time only one thread can access because of the synchronization. And also there are disadvantages are also there. because if you are not handling the thread switching properly, then there are chances of deadlock. So deadlock, if you are come across deadlock, then the program will wait forever. That is one thing. And also performance, like since if there is the same object, then that other threads has to wait unless and until they acquire that lock of that object. So because of which the waiting time will be increased. So I think you have understood what is synchronization, what happens if you don't use synchronization, and all the concepts that are related to the synchronization. I have also explained what is object level lock and class level lock. I think I tried my best to explain this concept. And if you have any questions, so please feel write it. Please feel good to write it in the comment section, so that I will answer those questions. And thank you so much for watching, guys.